I'm in Croatia now, in Primošten, for a NomadBase conference, a conference for digital nomads. And much to my surprise, there is, and he's in front of me right now, a big-time traveler, but Ukrainian. So, hi, Orest.
Hello, nice. Thanks for having me.
And Orest is like forest without an F.
Exactly.
And Zub.
That's my surname, and actually, if you can coincide Orest with the forest name, then Zub, it's like in the pure translation to Ukrainian, means a tooth.
A tooth?
Yeah, a tooth. So that's like I'm Orest the Tooth in Ukrainian.
Welcome to a special episode of the Radio Vagabond, recorded recently here in May 2022. I was at a conference for nomads called NomadBase Live in Croatia, where I still am. My name is Palabo. This is the Radio Vagabond, episode 231. Welcome to an interesting conversation I had with Orest the Tooth, Orest Zub, a digital nomad that turned into an urban war reporter.
This is the Radio Vagabond.
NomadBase is a fairly new thing organized by the same people who brought the world Nomad Cruise that you heard me talk about many times before here on this podcast. When the global pandemic changed everything, they had to pivot and come up with new ideas. And one of them was creating NomadBase Live, a conference-type event on land. This is their third, but my first, and I absolutely loved it. It's a great way to meet old friends and make new ones and be a part of this community of like-minded people. On this NomadBase, held in beautiful Primošten, Croatia, there were 274 digital nomads from all over the world gathered to share experiences from our digital nomad traveling lifestyle. And among these people, there was a young Ukrainian man. First we talk about his traveling life, and then we're going to hear more about the terrible war in Ukraine and how Orest helps his country by spreading the truth about what's really happening in this wonderful country.
This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
Hi and welcome. What in the world are you doing here?
I am participating in the NomadBase event, yes, that we are both of you now doing. It's an incredible event with over 250 people from all around the world. Those guys who nominate themselves as the digital nomads, meaning people who are free geographically, and they kind of rely on digital kind of remote work, online entrepreneurship, giving them the ability to earn money for their living, notwithstanding on their location. Actually, I'm part of this movement for the last 10 years. It was my ultimate dream to be able to freely travel the world, enjoy everything around, and make my living online. And now this is kind of like shaping into more formal communities, events, and NomadBase is one of such examples that are there in the world.
Yeah, and we're very similar in that way. You're just a little bit ahead of me. You started in 2012. I started in 2016. I've been to 105 countries. You've been to 129.
Correct. United Nation countries.
That's the ones we're counting. Yeah. But you still kept the home base.
Kind of. Like, so my style, let's say, for the first half of the decade that I am like a full digital nomad, looked in the following way. More or less summer season I was spending in Ukraine or in Europe. And then like winter was somewhere like in a further destination closer to equator, where it used to be warmer, even though like the heat is not my ultimate place where I usually go. But somehow, like with my wife, we were living around October, November, going to Southeast Asia, Central America, South America, Africa, exploring the entire region. For a couple of months, and usually we're trying to be back at home in Ukraine by Easter, which is a very important family holiday in Ukraine, then summer in Europe, and the reverse. And once we ran out of regions where we will be able to spend so much time, like meaning like 4 or 5 months in a row, and also maybe grow older a little bit, we started to rely more on our home base in Lviv, which is in western Ukraine, and do more faster trips, but for the shorter period of time, with coming back to our city.
Yeah. So did you travel alone or with your wife, or how was that?
I would say that 70% of my trips I did together with my wife. Together we visited over 80 countries, which is also a big number, for a couple to do
exactly.
it together. Approximately 5 to 6 months a year we are somewhere outside of Ukraine. Otherwise, randomly I travel with my friends, or I even enjoy solo trips. This is also a nice way to reconsider something, to be, with your own self. And the foreign community embraces you much faster when you are alone, actually, because you don't, spare time with another close community that you came from abroad.
Exactly.
So I do all types of travel.
Yeah, and I know that the people listening, they're probably wondering how are you able to do that. I know that you're a trained lawyer, but that's not the main income now. It's more into marketing.
Yeah, not at all. So I graduated as a lawyer, international commercial law in Ukraine. Then I did a few internships abroad, including Poland, Croatia, where we are now, and India. In India, I spent 5 months being a legal assistant. And my idea was to travel the world and, combine something with your education. So my initial roadmap that I was mapping for myself was to be integrated into some human rights, some crisis areas, where I could apply my education. So I started to work as the assistant of the human rights representative in Ukraine. However, this didn't work well because the reality of legal job appeared to be much more different than I was trained in the university for that. So after only 4 months of that job, I stopped and I started to pursue another way to reach my goals, which was traveling in that time. I founded a website called UkraineTravelSecrets.com. And it was a good time for that because it was just half a year before Ukraine was hosting European Football Championship together with Poland. So there was a big demand on information, there was big traffic on the website, and basically this turned into the travel agency about traveling in Ukraine, which was pretty successful for that time. And summer I was working in Ukraine, and winters I was living abroad. Yes, as I told you before, in the first decade of last 10 years. However, then in 2014, Russia invaded Ukraine, they annexed Crimea, and my travel business just collapsed because tourists stopped coming to the country. So I had to look for other opportunities.
They stopped coming to the country as a whole?
At least at the same volume as it used to be before. Because if you think of football championship, this is the third most important sport event in the world, and Ukraine was the hosting nation. So it completely opened up to the entire world, and it was very busy, But when the global media started to picture war in Ukraine, even though it was far away in the Donbass, it still psychologically, tells people you cannot go to this country. And this happens to other, as soon as the media tells about the war in a particular place, you don't think go there as a travel destination.
No, and even with the current war in Ukraine, I was in Hungary and just in Budapest, and there were some Americans writing to me, how can you go there? You know there's a war in Europe? And but it's not here. And
so they were that category was Eastern Europe, for example. How would you go to Hungary if there's war in Ukraine?
Some would maybe even think, how could you be in Denmark?
I will tell you more. I am staying in Ukraine since the first day of the war. And now we are here in Croatia, and once the event is finished, I'm driving back home to Lviv. So I'm always staying in Lviv during the wartime in Ukraine. What you have to consider is that the active battlefield doesn't cover the entire geographical boundaries of the Ukraine. Obviously, there are more dangerous places. There are more easy places. My city, Lviv, is considered to be one of the most safest places in Ukraine, if you possible to put this perspective.
Because it's in the western part of the country.
It's in the west. It's receiving shelling, not shelling, but rather long-range air missiles. And there have been a few of those in my city. There were relatively small casualties in comparison to this huge devastation in the east of Ukraine.
Let's just place it on a map. You're in the west, and how far are you to the border, and the border of which country?
Okay, so Lviv is 1 hour drive from the Polish border. It's 70 kilometers. It's the one of the furthest western points of Ukraine. And to put perspective, the active war zone is over than 1,000 kilometers to the east, which makes Berlin in Germany closer to my city than Donetsk, for example.
Yeah. And you were speaking about the war in Crimea that started in 2014, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
I was in Kiev in 2016, and I felt perfectly safe, and I didn't even think twice of going. And by the way, what a wonderful country!
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Ukraine, as our mutual friend Harry Mitsidis, the founder of Nomad Mania, told, with his message to Ukrainians. Now you are struggling a little bit, but once the war is over, this will be golden time for Ukraine, and I'm sure it will be like this.
Yeah, and what surprised me the most about Kiev is that it's so green and so hilly, and just a wonderful city.
It's an amazing city,
Yeah. In your journey, you've also been to a lot of conflict zones and places that had been destroyed by war, like Palestine and
Kosovo. And the initial place was, I told I was serving as the legal assistant in India. So during those period, I visited Kashmir, which is the conflict area between India and Pakistan. So these places started to fascinate me, but in the sense of I wanted to dig deeper. And whenever there is a conflict zone in the world, I think the instincts of people are much sharper than in the safe havens, and once you permit yourself to step into these situations, you start feeling the richness of life much brighter, if I can tell this. Yes, and that's what I feel now in Ukraine. Want to also to add that 1 week before Russian invasion of Ukraine, I was on the Nomad Mania group tour in Karabakh, which is the conflict area between Azerbaijan and Armenia. So it was frightening to see the possible level of devastation by war. And unfortunately, this happened to my country only a week after I visited those places.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to January, early February, when they were building up troops at the border. If you could go back and say what would your country be like in April, May, would you expect it to be what you see in Ukraine now?
I was definitely expecting a war. It was pretty simple to predict, I would say. You just have to look at the map and you see where are the troops. You see that what happened to other republics of the former Soviet Union within the other countries, like Abkhazia, like South Ossetia, like Transnistria. So already happened in Donbass. So the war is not starting from nothing, right? There first a process of preparation, then building up troops at the border, then a spark, and then something happened. Everybody remembers how the World War I started with the execution of Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo. So what surprised me was not the actual war that started, because I could say I knew it, and actually I came from Karabakh 4 days before the invasion, knowing that the war will start very soon. Everybody in our group was trying to persuade me not to board the plane, and there were some other people who were about to fly from Baku to Kiev and then onward to Western Europe, and none of them took the plane. They took the Istanbul detour. However, I was coming back home, so I knew exactly that I'm coming and there will probably be a war. What surprised me is that usually there is some kind of provocation in order to invade. For example, the Nazi in World War II, they used the situation in the television tower in Western Poland that Polish attacked, and now we have to invade in order to protect. But there was no such situation within Ukraine and Russia. They simply made this massive missile attack all around the country without any warning and even without any possible justification of that, right? I knew there will be a war, that's why I came, and it was my pure intentional decision, because in 2014, when you remember that we had a revolution in Ukraine and the war in Donbass started, I was nomading in Mexico, just on the beaches, surfing and so on. and I witnessed this revolution online from the news, and I felt terrible, I felt helpless, I felt anxious all the time. So this time I just told to myself, I'm not going to miss it, and I will be actively participating in the resistance.
So how have you been participating?
I joined the media front. So it's important to understand regarding war in Ukraine that this is very unique, and this is the first war when not only like bullets, not only tanks are involved, not only the brutal military power, there is actively propaganda involved. There is like a lot of media organizations that work. This is the first war in our history when there is like a cyber army involved. You know, people like we have a cyber army in Ukraine. Hackers attack the websites of governments of Russia. There is like huge economical front, which is like with the sanctions and so on. Everybody is busy. There is logistics. So once the war started, I thought I'm going to use my superpower, and my superpower is ability to reach the global audience in a way easy to explain them, and to put a perspective on events from my point of view. Also, by that time, I already had pretty much a large international network of friends who would be like the first kick of this informational flow. Since 2014, when my travel business went down, I'm running a digital and media company. So we had already all the processes in place with my team, and we simply shifted from a regular like digital business to like media presence on the war topic.
Yeah.
It was pretty fast decision for us, and I can say that we are pretty effective, and that's my contribution. Also, I am the honorary ambassador of Lviv, of my city. So, for example, now on the conference, I do the representational work. Yes, I speak about the topic. I engage different organizations to continue supporting Ukraine. Before Croatia, I was in Italy meeting like local NGOs, establishing contacts with the hospitals to deliver medical supplies. You know, so I'm like on the media and unofficial diplomatic part. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Were you afraid that they were going to give you a machine gun and say, go out and fight?
Absolutely not. According to the procedure, when the war started, as all the other male in Ukraine, I took my military ticket that we get after the finishing high school, and I went to the military union, military facility, and there you just apply and they tell you what you do next. So it appeared to be that I am in one of the latest possible waves of conscription, because there are particular procedures, right? First, you have the active military personnel, then you have people in the reserve, then you have people who used to serve in the army before, then you have people who let's say were studying in the university and they were taking this extra theoretical course of military subject. I took none of those, and basically if I will get conscripted, it will be one of the last waves. However, I'm not the guy who is just sitting there and not doing nothing. From the first days, I decided to actually participate in what I just explained.
And if not to make it a funny pun, but you're probably better shooting with a camera than with a gun, and more helpful
absolutely,
that way.
Absolutely. There is it's important to understand that everybody whom I know, every citizen of Ukraine is somehow involved in the war. Yeah, there are people who are on the front line, they're the main heroes, they're taking the biggest risk, obviously, yes. But there is entire huge industry, economy, logistical machine that is supporting the war, right? There is diplomacy. There is, my wife is involved into the cultural part. She is visiting different art organizations, establishing contacts with them. She were on Biennale in Venice talking about the war from the cultural perspective. They are blocking Russian initiatives on the cultural level, right? I'm doing this representation and media support. I'm helping foreign journalists. I drive with them to the conflict areas and we show the pure information.
Yeah.
There are tons of people who are into logistics, because this is one of the main parts in the war to supply the front line. Everybody is involved. Yeah. Not long time ago, Russian forces retreated from the outskirts of Kiev. The area where I am now are the western suburbs of our capital, and that's actually the first time I decided to leave Western Ukraine and check out what's happening here. So the drive was pretty smooth, but as we approach closer to Kyiv, we start seeing on the highway different machineries that are left here from the Russian forces. So this is, I don't know, the tank or which kind of device, but you see it's completely abandoned. Oh wow. Inside looks like this. It's really terrifying. Look what I just found. Some boots left. And that's the story of the Russian world in Ukraine.
So let's talk a little bit about your videos. You transformed your YouTube channel into basically you going around Ukraine, showing the rest of the world what it's really like. Mm-hmm. I watched a few of them, and you're driving around, and we see houses completely destroyed. We see Russian tanks completely destroyed, trucks, cars, everything, and you're just telling about it. You're not a journalist, mm-hmm. but you are kind of an urban reporter mm-hmm. going around showing us firsthand. And I can't help thinking what it would be like for me traveling around in my country looking like that. I would be lost for words, mm-hmm. but you still talk about it in a very matter-of-fact way. How are you able to do that?
That was scary because I spent the first month of the war in Lviv, taking care of my family. You know, my all the females from my family, my mother, two of my sisters, my nephew. They had to evacuate on the first week. My wife remained with me. Then I was taking care of my grandmother, who's very old. We put her into the nursing home, which is completely against the Ukrainian tradition. We don't put our older family members.
I heard that. Was it like? Because I heard it in one of the interviews.
It was probably the most touchy and the most emotional experience during the war, and it was the final housekeeping project for me before I kind of started to think more rationally. Because when the war starting, you function on the instinct survival level. And so first, you do the water supplies, you refill the car, you try to get some kind of care of the basic finances. Then your family becomes in a safer place abroad. But my grandmother, she's so old, it would be such a big drama to take her out abroad. So, but her apartment is near the airport in Lviv, and it was really nobody wanted to be in the position when the airport is bombed, then the entire neighborhood is locked, and we're not able to get her, right? So we did this with my father, and after that, during that time, it was really touchy because my grandmother was the one who was taking care of me when I was small. My parents were working all the time, and now kind of I had to, you have to put socks on her, you have to take her out. That was really, really tough emotionally for me. But once this was settled, I felt okay, now I can regroup and I can fight back, and that was the turning point when I already didn't have to think of the housekeeping things, the security anymore, that I could focus on the resistance.
Yeah.
And she's fine, she's in a safe place. My ladies, my mother and both sisters are eventually very soon they are coming back, returning home, because now we can predict more or less the situation and our family will be united again. But that was really tough to go through. And when I started visiting the liberated areas of Ukraine, because north of Ukraine around Kyiv was under occupation for around a month, that was shocking first to see. You just drive along the highway. I drove on the second day after the highway between Lviv and Kyiv became opened again.
Yeah.
And you see the destroyed bridges, so you have to take over. You see the buildings destroyed. First it's a shock, you don't believe, you don't understand what's happening. And once you stuff your mind for more and more, and you see this day 2, 3, it's crazy to tell, but you get used to it and you just process it more calm. Also, it's worth to say that I was accompanying a very famous journalist, Rauli Virtanen. He is our common friend with Harry and the entire travel community.
And I think, as far as I know, he's the the first person on that visited all the countries.
So he's like in this geek club as us, trying to he visited every country in the world all the way back in 1988. So this was a huge privilege for me just to work together with him.
Yeah. In one of the videos on his YouTube channel, he's driving to Kiev with an experienced war correspondent, Rauli Virtanen. He's a 73-year-old Finnish writer, freelance journalist, lecturer, and TV producer.
I'm traveling here with my friend and colleague Rauli. Rauli, hello, nice to see you. Rauli is a professional war correspondent, and his career starts all the way back from Vietnam War, right?
Yeah, 50 years ago.
50 years. And besides that, we actually met each other through the travel community of Nomad Mania. And Rauli is the first person in the human history to visit every country in the world. So that's a great inspiration for me.
Thank you.
What can you tell about this, what we just seen, this devastation, like comparing to other places you've seen before? Because I never witnessed something like this.
Yeah, it looks very bad. I mean, looks in a way it looks a normal war scene, but what I'm worried about is that once we proceed further, it will becoming worse and worse, and then
even worse than this.
Even worse than this, I'm sure, according to the pictures I have seen. So it will be even much worse. Doesn't look good, and as long as we know it, very possible many war crimes have been committed here, and loss of lives, of course, lots of loss of properties and destruction, and military burnt out, destroyed military vehicles.
We feel very friendly because we are from the same group, and I was driving, he was like pointing me out on things. He is the guy with the experience that started his war reporting all the way back in the Vietnam War, 1972.
Can you believe it? Yeah.
Since then he was reporting from all major conflicts, including Cambodia, 13 times Afghanistan. So thanks to his presence, I got the perspective on things also from the experience of his, through his eyes a little bit. And this just kind of like probably helped me to keep on. There were situations when I could not carry on. I told him, Rauli, I cannot ask this lady about their parents or about their relatives who just died recently. Don't push me to talk more about this. But he told no, our work as reporters is to deliver the truth, just try to act professionally. And so I'm very grateful to him for that.
Yeah, so he pushed you to do something that you didn't really feel like, but it was important.
Yeah, I understand that it was really important.
How did they react when did they want to talk?
Differently, some people were just speechless.
Yeah.
Some people were telling about this. Some people could not answer if you ask them. And there are a bunch of different stories, starting from losing a house and finishing with dead relatives. So I was present together with Rauli in Bucha on the excavation, and with our presence, over 24 of bodies have been taken out from the ground. With all the smell around, with all the relatives who were not sure if there are their loved ones among those people, and it was hard to recognize faces after 3 weeks in the ground. That was a life-changing experience for me.
Yeah. What can we do? What can we do to help?
So, first of all, I would like to execute my gratitude to everybody who is listening to this. It's the first time in the history when the entire world is united against one matter. Yes, this is the first time when you can clearly see and draw a line between good and bad. When it's a unique situation among all military conflicts, when one party receives such a tremendous support, and there is explanation for that, because one country is invading completely innocent another country. That's why we have the support, and this is already, it means a lot. Secondly, like what's possible to help, like what are the action steps? There are different priorities, I would put them. Number one is supporting the military. Like our army is having a lot of support, but it has to continue getting support from people. So we can put below the video, the audio, like links. You can just simply donate directly to the army, because if Ukraine loses the war, all other things don't really matter. And if Ukraine like loses the war, the next can be any other country, right? But at the same time, I understand there are many people out there who tell, okay, like I want to support Ukraine, but I don't want to contribute to the killing machines or guns or so on. That's fine. So in that case, you are free to choose any organization out there in Ukraine which resonates to you. NGO that takes care of displaced children. NGO that does the food, the humanitarian work, the medicine, do and support those NGOs directly that are like within your preferences. Thirdly, most probably you are already like you have some business, or you work in some company, or you work in other organizations, is to slightly shift your main focus, doing what you're already doing actively, but just branch it out towards Ukrainian needs. For example, we are now in the Digital Nomad conference, and I tell many people, like, hey guys, like if you have the company that you employ people online, or you teach people how to get a job online, create like a special landing page how Ukrainians can get a job online. Yes, if you have a pharmacy, for example, like donate 10% of things that you sell to buy medicine for Ukraine, So I'm not asking to sacrifice something, simply continue doing what you already do, but branch it a little out towards the Ukrainian needs. And fourth is, subscribe to my to my profiles, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Since the day one of the war, I am reporting everything, trying to do this like as much transparent as possible, telling the truth, what I see with my own eyes. I'm not competing with the loud headlines of media. I just present what I see. And that will be also nice support, helping me to spread the message.
Exactly. It's a tradition on NomadBase Live, and before that on every Nomad Cruise, that we do a charity dinner where we all chip in with donations for a good cause. And Orest was asked by NomadBase to find a children-specific charity in Ukraine that needs support in this crucial time. Orest did his research and found an orphanage in the town Veliki Lubin near Lviv in the western Ukraine, where he lives. At the conference, Orest gives a talk about the situation in Ukraine, and he plays a video recorded at the orphanage. The video starts with Orest sitting on his knees with 3 smiling kids hanging on him, waving to the camera.
Hello, Nomads!
Hello, Nomads!
It's Orest from a town of Veliki Lubin near Lviv, and this is the orphanage with over 60 children. Over 40 of them are displaced children from eastern Ukraine because they had to leave their places.
This orphanage hosts children from the surrounding areas and those who come from the war-torn eastern part of the country.
Where are you from?
Kramatorsk.
Kramatorsk. А ти, Анджеліна, звідки ти?
Mariupol.
Mariupol. Oh, wow.
The second girl in this clip is a 7 to 8 year old girl with a serious look on her face. When she says that she comes from Mariupol, all Orest can say is, oh, wow. Following the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Mariupol was a strategic target for Russian and pro-Russian forces, and Mariupol is one of the places in Ukraine that suffered the most. On March 19 this year, a Ukrainian police officer in Mariupol made a video where he said, "Children, elderly people are dying. The city is destroyed and it is wiped off the face of the earth." And Mariupol is the city where this little girl was having a safe and happy childhood until the meaningless war started. When Orest plays the video with this clip, most of us are sitting in the conference hall with tears in our eyes.
I really hope we will manage to create a beautiful and efficient charity dinner. And what I'm really also hoping for, guys, is that after the war is finished in Ukraine, you will be able to visit my native city, Lviv, we will organize the NomadBase live event in Ukraine, and together we will visit this orphanage to see the results of our previous donations.
In a Facebook post after the event, Orest mentions that our first contribution will be a van. So far, the initiative has raised around $6,500, which is probably enough for a very basic 8-seater van.
Why it's important to support such places is because during the war, entire attention of the public funds is going towards the military needs, obviously. So such places are usually overlooked, and that's like something to keep in mind, and not to forget about children, about the orphanage, because children are the future of every country. And so far it has been reported that over 2 million children had to be displaced from their hometown.
If you like to contribute, you can do it on PayPal to orest@openmind.com.ua, or see the page for other options, openmind.com.ua/support. I'll link to this on theradiovagabond.com. How do you see this end? When the whole thing started, I thought, I don't really see any way this will end. I don't see Putin saying, this was a mistake, I'm going back, sorry. I don't see that happening. And also at the same time, I don't see the Ukrainian people ever giving up. It'll be last man standing. So a year from now, what's it going to be like? Is it going to be a part of Russia, or is it going to be back to Ukraine and peace again? And
first of all, I really hope it will not last for a year. Secondly, is that it's so unpredictable. Like, who would imagine 2 months ago that Ukraine will resist, that Ukraine will not fall, as many people were expecting to, right? Ukrainians proved to exercise a tremendous resistance. Now, once we show to the entire world what we are really worth, we are continuing to receive the support. Our army is getting more equipped, and every single Ukrainian is 100% committed to the victory. So I cannot tell you exactly how it will finish, but everybody is hoping for Ukraine to win. Everybody is doing everything they can. They sacrifice their life for that, including me. Like, my priorities of traveling or some digital work completely shifted towards the supporting the war needs. I really hope that Ukraine will join European Union. And this is the chance for not only for Ukraine, but for the Europe and the entire civilized world to finally put a mark in the Ukrainian question. Transnistria has to be resolved. It cannot be sandwiched between Moldova and Ukraine.
Yeah, for the people who don't know, Transnistria is this little autonomous area actually within Moldova, but when I was in Transnistria, even the buses said our future is with Russia, so they're very Russia friendly. But they have their own border control, they have their own money. The coins are made out of plastic, by the way. So it's a little funny thing going
on
there. So
that has to be settled. It cannot stay.
No.
I will tell more. Kaliningrad Oblast has to be settled, like the Königsberg. Now the Europe, they see that this is just a bomb of the extended explosion. I mean, now this is the Ukrainians are taking the biggest death toll, right? We are doing all the dirty job with the protecting, shootings and so on, and we are fine with that, yes? But Kaliningrad has to be settled. And what I really believe from the historical perspective, if you go down to the human level, it's terrible. We all die, people die, destroy cities and so on. But if we think more globally from the, perspective of civilization, how it's evolving and the centuries as opposed to days or months, it's a positive global move of our society towards liberalization of people who are living on this planet, yeah? Ukraine is simply now going through the period of strengthening the nation that happened in other Central European countries 100 years ago, that happened in Germany and Italy in the 19th century, right? And Ukraine is the next one. Now we see how the spirit grew. So once the war in Ukraine will be finished, you will see the next one will be Belarus, because Belarusian people, they are trapped in the autocratic regime, and they also belong to the European family that they deserve to. They're simply a little bit more in a tougher positions, yes? And eventually we see a global way of unification of Europe, which might even lead to United States of Europe someday. We'll see.
Well, we'll see about that. Orest, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That's it for this time. Thank you so much to Orest, and let's hope this horrible war comes to an end soon. And please go to the website to support the orphanage. My name is Palabo. See you.
Radio Vagabond. Produced by RadioGuru.co.uk.